Good morning. It's time for another one of our Chamber Spotlight interviews. This week, I was able to sit down with Lisa from Playfulli Photography. So, to get things started, how did Playfulli come to be?
Thank you so much for asking. So, Playfulli is my world work that came to be after, honestly, decades of multidisciplinary study and practice. So on its surface, Playfulli is my photography business, but it's so much more than that. I started off way back in the 1900s. I love laughing at that. But I studied at IU and got a degree in psychology, worked with the Kinsey Institute, and then went on to pursue different disciplines, master's work in wellness education, and then certifications in yoga and meditation. And photography was a constant throughout all of those, but it was never a focus. I spent 18 to 20 years being a mother with two kids who now are in IU and at Ivy Tech. And throughout all of that, I started finding my own voice and the courage to start living beyond the shoulds and the societal constructs that I had been taught throughout all of this. And the arts, as they tend to do, they provided this avenue for that voice to start to be heard. So I started expressing myself more through a few art shows here in town, primarily through the mediums of acrylic work and encaustic work. But photography still was this kind of side gig where I was just photographing various different get-togethers or people in costumes. And in the past 5 years or so, I started really honing in on it as a way that could incorporate all of these disciplines and practices that I have had for all of these different years, and how that it could be something that both showed and reminded others of the beauty and the diversity of human experience. So I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, I invited a few friends to just test out this concept of playful photography. And I invited them to a playground with some toys and props and just photographed the results. And the process of the sessions, the quality of the photos, the depth of the experiences has definitely transformed since that time. But the ultimate spirit remains that Playfulli is truly, and this idea where photography incorporates all of these disciplines and where photography meets play.
So what services do you provide?
Well, at the simplest level, event and portrait photography with a playful perspective. So I have 3 primary focuses. Event photography for already planned events. So some examples that I've done include graduation and bachelorette parties, charity events, and then some city events and some local business events, and then drag and burlesque shows, which I love. And then the portrait photography itself, I do those for traditional purposes. So I do that with a playfully creative approach, of course. So senior photos, couples, headshots, boudoir, that sort of thing. But my signature offering is the playful photography experiences. So these are the creative experiences that we co-create. And I'm kind of your reason or excuse for doing something that you wouldn't otherwise do, for kind of trying on a different way of experiencing life. And these are either one-on-one sessions or for couples or for small groups. And for groups, we design a playful time together. So a bar hop or a coffee shop hop. We do a playground takeover or some kind of unique experience that you're like, oh, that could be fun, but you wouldn't otherwise just put on your calendar. And I join in with my camera, like, the friend in the background, and occasional guidance if needed. And I capture this fun time together, and I create this space and this opportunity to have not only a memorable experience, but to then provide this album or this storybook to reflect on and to share with others. And then for the one-on-one experiences, we focus on themes and feelings. So what it is that you want to feel and what you want to express. So anything from an 80s dress-up session, that was one of my favorites, to like a quiet, meditative exploration, to like a sensual boudoir experience, to this playful release through toys and movement to shake off all those shoulds because, life's heavy right now. We just really create this safe environment to explore and create and capture these images of you that help you to remember just how diverse you are and how exciting life can be. And it lights me up just even talking about that. So, finally, I am expanding into more LGBTQ advocacy, women's advocacy, and play advocacy. And I am working with organizations such as the newly formed Bloomington Rainbow Leadership Network. I want to make sure I get that name right because we just formed it. This is through the Chamber of Commerce. And I'm also working with the U.S. Play Coalition. We'll have an event for the Rainbow Network in May of this year, 2026. And I will be presenting at the Play Coalition Conference on the IU campus in April. And you can learn more about those at the information that I'll share later.
So what does a traditional or creative photo session look like with you?
I love answering this question because this really helps people clarify if I'm a good match. There are so many fabulous photographers in and around the Bloomington area, and I truly want to support us all. I mean, we are all working to document and to capture and share the human experience in one form or another. And I think that's so cool and it's fascinating. But for the photographers who work with people, I really believe that it's important to create a good match because the relationship between the photographer and the client determines the experience that the client has, which then greatly influences the look and the feel of the final photos. So I always begin with a consultation. And that's either via Zoom or if you're local, I love meeting up for coffee. I've mentioned coffee a couple times already. You can tell how much I love that. Whether it's for an event or portrait session, I really like to have that time to talk through because it allows us to get to know one another and to honestly chat about what we want to create together and what's important for the client to have captured, what's important for them to experience and to remember. And then I mentioned those three types of primary experiences. If it's a pre-created event, like I'm just coming and I'm like the friendly ninja in the background, basically. I'm documenting what's happening and capturing both the obvious and then what most people are missing. And I'm telling the full story of the gathering. And if it's a traditional portrait session, we'll either meet at the studio in downtown Bloomington or at our pre-chosen location. And we'll spend just a few minutes just chatting and connecting and kind of bringing ourselves into the moment. And then I will guide you into poses, or what I call pauses, because I always want to encourage just to keep moving and flowing and all of that. The biggest thing is I really want you to feel safe and guided. So I'll provide as much instruction as needed, but I always want my client to feel like they're a part of the session as well, not just like a puppet that I'm, posing. So I always invite and welcome any input or suggestions along the way if something comes up. And I always will match the mood or the vibe that we discussed during the consultation. And I always tend to be just a bit smiley and bouncy and, playful as we're going along. So that's kind of my style, because I want to break you out of focusing on perfection and relax you into just being who you are. Because, like I mentioned, that's when the most beautiful and authentic experiences and photos result. So for the playful photography experiences, that final one, the sessions, they just look and feel so vastly different depending on why and how we're creating them.
What would someone be looking for to make them a good match for Playfully?
It would be a woman in her 40s looking for a reason to pull that fabulous dress out of the closet and to feel gorgeous and released. It would be a group of women in their 30s looking for a night out who aren't afraid to get a bit silly, and they need that excuse to finally get something on the calendar. It would be an LGBTQ couple looking for a safe space to dance and cuddle and express joy together. It would be a professional looking for headshots that express their true joyful self, not that stuffy, online should be office version. It would be a small group of friends going on a mini adventure who want to focus on their time together, but they want images captured of that unique time. They don't want to have to worry about holding their cell phone the entire time or, not having anything to remember it by. It would be an event coordinator who wants a professional and yet super friendly photographer who's going to capture the fullness of the event and the experiences that they spent so much time putting together. And for each of these, it's someone who's more interested in the experience itself versus the perfectionism of appearance, who wants to remember the experience they had through the digital images and printed storybooks, and to remember just how fascinating the experience of life can be when you remember to play.
So finally, if people want to get in contact with you, where can we find you?
All around town, but also online. So social media. I am older, so I am on Facebook a lot. So primarily on Facebook at Go Playfully, and that's with an I. So GOPLAYFULLI. That's also the same handle at Instagram. You can also find me and follow me at both at Lisa Renee Wilson. And you can also find me on my website at goplayfully.com, same spelling. And for those who want to stay in touch but are freaked out about having photos taken but resonate with the idea of play, I encourage you to join my online play group where we get together both in person and online, and that information can be found on my website.
That was Lisa from Playfully Photography. Stay tuned in the coming weeks for more interviews with members of the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce here on B97.